And what a beautiful day we have to commemorate one of the greatest Irishmen ever. It's my duty on behalf of the Béal and the Bláth committee to welcome you all here today and wish you a warm and sincere welcome to West Cork. We are joined on the platform here by our guest speaker, Mr. Béal Herlihy, the Mayor of... Give him a welcome. You'll have an opportunity for that in a minute. The Mayor of Cork County, Councillor Noel O'Connor from Mallow. The Deputy Lord Mayor of Cork, Councillor John, I nearly said Birmingham, Buttimer. Helen Collins, representing the Collins family. And Father O'Connell is amongst us as well, once again, to recite the prayers. On this side of the political divide, or the opposition benches, I don't know what you want to call it, we have very important guests as well. We have the Mayor of Macroom, Councillor Ted Lucy. We have Mrs. Hilary O'Herlihy, the wife of Bill. And his daughter Jill. Ladies and gentlemen, all of us here today are here to pay our respects and to remember Michael Collins in a dignified and prayerful manner, as is fitting to the man. This simple ceremony is held annually at this time of year to commemorate a great and remarkable Irishman. His achievements and total commitment to every task, plus the multiplicity of duties undertaken by him, are legendary. He is renowned for his great determination, overwhelming passion, high intelligence, outstanding ability, and powerful leadership skills. Those admirable qualities were matched and enhanced by tremendous integrity. That's so badly needed in the country today. And a strong, vigorous loyalty to his country and, more important, to its people. This prominent West Corkman still continues to hold an exalted place in the hearts and minds of the Irish people, both at home and abroad. This ceremony here today is a way of paying tribute to him. Now, I'd like to call on Father O'Connell to lead us in prayer.
The Gael, the fault we've got in and show, I'd say the fifth glorious mystery, the fifth decade of the Rosary, for the repose of the soul of Michael, and for all who died in the fight for freedom, then and since. We can get my rosary here. Na manahar agus bhíh agus spéad níomh min. An cúigiú corón na glór, corónú maid na mire an nab agus na néfa. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Excuse me. It is an auspicious occasion. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit. Hail, Holy Queen, Mother of Mercy, hail our life, our sweetness, and our hope. To thee do we cry, poor banished children of Eve. To thee do we send up our sighs, mourning and weeping, with very tears. Turn then, most gracious Advocate, thine eyes of mercy towards us, and after this our exile, show unto us, bless the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. O clement, O loving, O sweet Virgin Mary, pray for us, O most holy Mother of God. Eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon him. May he rest in peace. May his soul and the souls of all the faithful departed, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. Amen. Yes, Jacob of Hanum, agus Anamaka, na Dina Gulair, a full wash, I Goga, the Sirsha, agus O'Hin. Good night.
Thank you, Father O'Connell. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am both delighted and honoured to welcome here today a man that is a household name throughout Ireland. Bill Herlihy is a native of Cork City, widely known and much respected by all. He is one of the most iconic names in Irish broadcasting. Chief presenter on RT television for the station's soccer coverage. He has been involved with the station for 40 years. His first broadcast was a feature on the Lusitania in 1965. He worked as a presenter with Current Affairs on the award-winning 7 Days programme for 4 years, and then moved to sports. During that time, he has anchored 9 Olympic Games, World Cup finals in both soccer and rugby, plus the European Championships. He won a Jacobs Award for his presentation of the 1990 World Cup. In 2001, he was voted by the public TV Personality of the Year, Irish Sports Journalist of the Year in 2003. In 2007, he was named the Irish Film and TV Academies, a very prestigious honour. He was awarded the Television Personality of the Year. He was the most popular sports broadcaster across all channels in 2008. Bill founded his own company, his own public relations company, in 1973, was media advisor to Gareth Fitzgerald in the 1970s. He is currently chairperson of the Irish Film Board. The Taoiseach and the Kenny launched Bill's autobiography, We Leave There So, last October. The book tells his story growing up in Cork. Ladies and gentlemen, the accomplishments of our guest speaker is some achievements, not achievement, some achievements. For the young boy who started out as a journalist for the Cork Examiner at 16 years of age. The editor at that time, I think it was Tom Crosby, but I stand to be corrected, but whoever the editor was certainly a very good judge at identifying exceptional talent. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and give a warm welcome to Bill O'Herlihy.
I suppose in the immortal traditions of Après Match, I should say, okie doke, it's great to be here live. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm immensely flattered to be asked to address this gathering today. As a proud Corkman, I can think of no greater compliment than being honoured with the task of speaking at the annual Béal na Bláth commemoration. So many great names of Irish history, of Irish politics, of Irish business have stood where I'm standing now, so I can only feel humbled by the privilege that's been afforded to me. The fact that last year's speaker was our Taoiseach Enda Kenny only underlines the importance of the occasion, and I'm really grateful for my being asked to speak here today. Now, Michael Collins was a great man, a nation builder, a visionary, a deep thinker about the future of Ireland, and someone whose ambition and aspiration is still tantalisingly unmet. This, I think, is what makes this annual commemoration an important national event. We meet again in Béal na Bláth on the 91st anniversary of Collins's death to remind ourselves of what must still be done to achieve the grand design that Collins dreamt of and worked for, and to ponder what he might have done had he been not snatched from the public stage at such a young age. Now, in thinking about the theme for this address, the youth and vigour of all those who created the Irish Revolution has been in the forefront of my mind. As many of you probably do know, I have spent a great part of my career studying, analysing and appraising the performances of youthful endeavour on the playing fields both at home and abroad, and I've learned to appreciate the single-minded dedication and discipline, as well as the strength and the enthusiasm of our athletic youth, and I've seen how this has lifted the morale of the nation and sustained it through difficult and trying times. As in so many other ways, Michael Collins was way ahead of his time in his realisation of the virtues of sport, of how sport could be harnessed to bring a spirit and cohesion to his political and military endeavours. Sport for him became part of his inspiration. The challenge of sport to galvanise the nation really has not changed that much in the 91 years since Collins died. If you look at the response, for instance, to the gold medal in the couple of days previously of Rob Heffernan at the World Athletics Championships, which have just ended in Moscow, or Katie Taylor's gold, and the success of our boxers at the London Olympics. Now, much stress has been focused, not unnaturally, on Michael Collins, the architect of the War of Independence, and little enough attention has been devoted to Collins' admittedly brief tenure as a sports administrator. When he emigrated to London in 1906, he quickly made three decisions, not necessarily unconnected. These decisions would change his life, and they would in turn change the course of life for the rest of us on this island. First, he joined the Irish Republican Brotherhood, being sworn in by his fellow post office worker, the Dunmanway man with the well-known name Sam Maguire. He also joined the Gaelic League and chose a leadership role for himself in the GAA, the secret IRB, believing that it should have its members well placed in all legitimate Irish organisations and social groups. No one ever accused Collins of being other than a rugged individualist, but he took to sports organising with the restless impulse that characterised the rest of his career. By 1908, he had himself elected vice-captain of the Geraldines Hurling Club in London, even though he wasn't what you would call a polished player. He's been described as an effective midfielder, a description that in my estimation could mean anything. I suspect his temper, which was renowned, would have seen him capture a few red cards if red cards had been developed in that particular time. But organisation and administration were his strong suits, and eloquence and persuasion completed this suite of talents that would have made him a very incisive commentator if there were commentators around in those days. Now, he was elected to the London board of the GAA and took on a key administrative role of club secretary, a job he managed to retain until he returned to Dublin in 1916 to prepare for the Rising. As an administrator, he was not shy about confronting dissidents whenever he met them, and there were plenty of dissidents in the ranks of the Geraldines. Once he was obliged to warn club members, "In no single contest have our colours been crowned with success. Signs of decay are unmistakable, and if members are not prepared in the future to act more harmoniously together and more self-sacrificingly generally, the club will soon fade into inglorious and well-deserved oblivion." Now, this censure and the implicit recognition of the value of disciplined organisation solidarity told much about the maturity of Collins, then only in his early 20s. And it's clear Collins wanted his own way and was impatient with malcontents, but he was immensely proud of Irish sport, what it signified, and in this too there's a lesson for the modern era. A former colleague in one of the banking institutions for which Collins worked in London told Collins' biographer Rex Taylor that he once asked the great man in fun if hurling was a civilised sport. Yes, says Collins, it is part of the most civilised race on earth. In sport, aspects of greatness occasionally sparkle through, and in Collins' sporting life, the seeds of his determination as well as his magnanimity shone through. He was driven, as all sportsmen must be, but few sportsmen ever faced the challenges and the decisions that confronted Collins when he left London behind and picked up the military and subsequently nation-building role he would assume in the following 6 years. These brought all his talents into display. His personal bravery, the courage that demanded life and death decisions for his army and the army of the empire that he faced down, and he had to confront the ultimate breach with friends and colleagues of the struggle, which was probably, I'm sure, the hardest battle of all. Negotiating a path of disciplined adherence to the policies of 1916 left him and his fellow soldiers on different sides of the barricade, and that challenge too could only be endured by a man of unique character, gumption and backbone. At Béal na Bláth we cannot forget these events and the tragedy and drama of those years. But I would argue here with you today that in most respects these are the preoccupations of yesteryear. For so long in Ireland we've been caught up with past battles. There can be only so many rematches, and there comes a time when old fights can no longer teach us any more lessons. That, I hasten to say, is not to suggest that the value of Collins or of those who took issue with him in the Civil War can be disposed of in the dustbin of history. Far from it. Greatness must be cherished, as happens in sport, where we still remember and praise athletes of the past. But Ireland has long reached the point where the divisions of the Civil War have become a damaging anachronism. When the historian Maurice Manning, then a Fine Gael senator, spoke at this commemoration 14 years ago, he quoted a letter written by Michael Collins to Gareth Fitzgerald's father, Desmond Fitzgerald, in 1922. And the letter said, "What we must aim at is the building of a sound economic life, in which great discrepancies cannot occur. We must not have destitution or poverty at one end, and at the other an excess of riches in the possession of a few individuals, beyond what they can spend with satisfaction and justification." And Collins went on, "The growing wealth of Ireland will, we hope, be diffused through all our people, all sharing in the growing prosperity, each receiving what each contributes in the making of that prosperity, so that wealth of all is assured." Now, these important thoughts and other elements of Collins' vision for the future of Ireland were contained in the posthumously published volume, The Path to Freedom. It's a book that should be reread, especially by politicians, who might then challenge themselves with this question: can we, in all honesty, claim to have ever come near to that equal society so dear to the heart of Michael Collins? I suggest that even in the best economic times, we never came remotely close. Now, was this because we had a political structure that had one eye on the past? And does it make any sense to have the major political parties tussling for power where for so long the width of a sheet of tissue paper scarcely separated their policies? How much more progress, how much more reform would be possible if senseless old historical divisions, I should say, were eliminated from our policies? I know the political analysts have been labouring for decades trying to analyse the paradox of having the two best supported political parties at loggerheads for generations over passions played out 80 years ago. I'm old enough to understand that phenomenon, but the vast majority of the people of Ireland have lost any real contact with that quarrel. They have every right to be impatient with it. The excuse has always been, this is Ireland and Ireland is different. In other countries, very much more recent and very much more destructive wars have been set aside and normal politics resumed. We seem to want to be different. Two of the country's leading political scientists, Michael Gallagher and Michael Marsh, set to the task in 2002 of spotting the differences between Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. They quoted a former Labour Minister, Barry Desmond, Corkman of course, who revealed that he had been given the last word on the subject by a Cork Fianna Fáil member of his acquaintance. Desmond was told, "Them that know don't need to ask, and them that don't know don't need to know." I know that kind of political paddywhackery still raises a laugh, but it's also old, it's backward, it's old hat, and massively unhelpful. It suggests that the differences between the two parties in pursuing progressive economic and social policies are at best contrived. This is surely a damning indictment of the political system. The only reason it has not changed is because that's the way it has always been, and that's an argument that would get an F in any test of logic. I think we must realise that the time is long past when sloganeering must be replaced by fresh thinking. The way we deal with politics in this country demands change. Our challenges, as serious and perhaps more serious than ever been in the history of this country, can only be helped by the clean sweep idea that inspired Collins and his generation. Moreover, we cannot continue to distort the language of politics as we have been doing for so long. For example, we took the classic and noble concept of the Republic, which means a society with equality for all its members, and turned that word into something dark and threatening. When Des O'Malley famously said that he stood for the Republic, it made headlines, because the language of politics in this country is an arcane language that only we can understand. Now, most people with any feeling for this country should stand for the Republic of equality and fair dealing, the Republic that has no time for strokes, vested interests and political chicanery. The idea of re-embracing the word Republic is another reason why I find the notion that Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin might merge or coalesce to be a disturbing and retrograde idea. It might seem strange to say so at the site devoted to freedom, a freedom fighter, but maturity, along with the written legacy of Michael Collins himself, tells us that any politics with wistful yearnings for a violent past is exactly what we do not want. It is something we want to get away from rather to embrace. Now, Sinn Féin, in fairness, deserves credit for the slow and tortuous progress that's been made in Northern Ireland, and the party deserves the maximum encouragement to consider that. But only Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil have the proven trust of the people of this republic for the past 80 years. I believe they should examine, and if necessary, pool what they share and allow the people of this country to reap the benefits. Now, I am aware that not everyone shares this view, and I recognise it plays no part in current Fine Gael government thinking. And frankly, it is more easily said than done, especially if you examine the developments of the more recent past, which have been characterised by a major shift in the political landscape. For many going to the polls, the historic and traditional divisions still hold sway. But some experts will tell you that De Valera's last general election in 1957 was also the last election in which Civil War politics played a significant part. In 1961, a new direction begun by John A. Costello and Gerald Sweetman and led by Sean Lemass and T.K. Whitaker was sweeping Ireland. It was marked by the creation of the IDA and the first programme for economic expansion. It spoke of free trade, of inward investment, of industrial development, of programmes for economic expansion, and even of joining the newly formed EEC. The era of protectionism in Ireland was over. A new generation of Fianna Fáil politicians embraced this thinking, and the party morphed gradually away from its aura of romantic republicanism with its twin, unachievable national aims of unity and language, and its party of the common people positioning to the party of the establishment and big business. Fine Gael, looking towards social democracy, moved in the opposite direction, influenced by the politics of just society progressive thinkers like Declan Costello and leaders like Garrett Fitzgerald and Alan Dukes, and entered into competition with Labour in the centre-left round, leaving Fianna Fáil alone as the natural party of government. Recent events, the Ahern leadership, the era of tribunals and corruption, the catastrophic mismanagement of the economy, and the arrival of the dynamic leadership of Enda Kenny to Fine Gael together with an influx of young pragmatic politicians, have reversed the shape of Irish politics. Our greatly expanded and focused Fine Gael has moved with determination into the governing centre-right position, leaving Fianna Fáil, in my view, to compete with Labour and a renewed Sinn Féin for space in the centre-left ground. This, experts will argue, is the natural working of party politics in modern European democracies. But must it always be so? I was very interested in Mary O'Rourke's recent speech, and she articulated a view that I've heard many express, and with which I sympathise, that perhaps we had reached the time to forego differences, historic and otherwise, to engage the mind on the possibility of coming together in some form of Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. Now, I recognise that would represent a sea change in Irish political life and an enormous challenge to implement. I recognise the difficulties. I recognise, most especially in the current climate, the fear people have of an overwhelming political majority. I recognise the distrust of the electorate it has because of the actions of the recent Fianna Fáil administration, and the determination that what happened before will not recur, and that Fianna Fáil must be punished in government in the short term. I recognise the promise of significant political reform is moving more slowly than we would wish. And most of all, that those who have been the victims of our economic collapse, rather than those who have created that collapse, have suffered most. This is not right or just. But in spite of these reservations, I believe coalition of Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil has much to offer at a time of huge challenge for Ireland. The creation of a new right-left political landscape, the introduction and implementation of new ideas quickly, the merging of strong, determined personalities, and the emergence, in my view, at the end, of a new and stronger Ireland. But perhaps I am too trusting. Some people would argue I am naive. But I suspect the Irish people would like to see this development, perhaps not immediately, but not either in the distant future. I personally would like to see this development as part of a new political landscape true to the ideals of Collins. Collins in The Path to Freedom laid heavy stress on the real riches of the Irish nation, what he called the dowries of nature with which we are blessed. But the resource he was proudest of was the spirit of the Irish people. So, cast your mind back to any of the last 5 or 6 years and think of the depressing list of official reports that have highlighted the abuse, the neglect and the degradation of vulnerable members of our society. Think for a minute how the brusque and patient Michael Collins would have responded to the treatment of certain children in the Ireland he helped create. Ask also, what would he have made of the shameful inadequacies of our mental health services? Then think about the abject squandering of precious resources in the banker-led bubble, the loss of Irish sovereignty, the humiliation of Ireland being described as the Wild West of European finance. From my reading of The Path to Freedom, from my understanding of Michael Collins and his passion for change, not to speak of his legendary temper, I suggest the indifferent and the complacent would have got very short shrift indeed. These are not untimely thoughts. We have just embarked on a decade of non-stop centenary celebration, which will serve to remind us that all our old wars are past. We must learn from the past, but we must also be instructed by the mistakes of our own generation. In the short term, we have the current loss of our economic sovereignty to remind us that we have a big job ahead. I believe it's time for new politics, and the start cannot begin quickly enough. There's a certain solemnity about the annual commemoration at Béal na Bláth. It's a pilgrimage site in so many ways, a way of paying homage to a generation that made such an important contribution to the Irish nation and helped make us proud and independent. The organisers of this event have made the Collins commemoration a place where we can brush up our ideas, where we have the opportunity to reflect on public life in a special way. We pay tribute to Collins while knowing that we can only make him proud of our generation only by being smart, by being creative, by being honest, and being realistic enough to know where we have blundered. In my judgment, our reform politics would kickstart important changes. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm most grateful for the opportunity of speaking to you today, and I thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was some oration. I'd like to compliment and congratulate Bill on the in-depth research that he undertook to present this paper here today, of also the way he thoughtfully has provoked the country in a way that we should consider. On a personal level, I was very pleased that he focused on the sporting qualities of Collins. That is something that is not widely known perhaps by everybody, that the role that Collins played, particularly in the GA, as a young boy, and Bill will understand this, a young boy at 16, he was secretary of the Geraldines Club in London for about 6 years. So that is a great Irishman, a great sportsman. I would like to echo or re-echo here today, just this thought just occurred to me as I was listening to Bill, a request or an appeal that Sean Kelly made here some years ago when he gave the oration, and Sean is a past president of the GA, when he respectively requested and appealed that it was time for the GA to name some national trophy after Michael Collins. And if that proves a difficulty or an impediment to the GA, again I would re-echo what Sean Kelly said at the time, let's name one after De Valera as well, in order to get one for Collins. Now, thank you very much for your attention. Indeed, it was spellbinding to listen to Bill. You could hear a pin drop, and indeed, he done us proud. He done Cork proud in his address here today. So well done again, Bill. Down through the years here, we have always members of the Collins family in attendance. Sorry, Diana. We have always members of the Collins family in attendance over many, many years since these ceremonies commenced. I know we have members of the family in the congregation, but here on the platform we have Helen Collins, who represents the Collins family and has done for many years. She's a grandniece of the big fellow, and it now gives me great pleasure to call in Helen to propose a vote of thanks to Bill Herlihy.
Thank you, Lovey. Thank you. Beautiful son. Distinguished guests, friends and supporters, it's wonderful to be here standing in the sun, because many a time we've been here together with the rain pouring on us. So it's a great blessing today. I have the honour of speaking on behalf of the Collins family. You are all very welcome to this commemoration service for the death of my granduncle Michael Collins. I am delighted to welcome the enigmatic Bill O'Herlihy, and I thank you, Bill, for your heartfelt and heartwarming oration. I applaud and appreciate your words of respect and reconciliation, and your efforts to build bridges and move forwards together. I am absolutely clear that Béal na Bláth is not a place of division, recrimination and loss. For me, it is a powerful and evocative symbol of idealism, dedication, leadership, achievement, inclusiveness and reconciliation. The huge events surrounding Michael's life and death, and that of his brother Johnny, my grandfather, have left a traumatic mark on our family to this day. However, in the same way as us citizens of post-Celtic Tiger Ireland have had to straighten our backs, broaden our shoulders and go forward positively. We, the family of Michael Collins, have learnt a great deal from his death. We have been raised without bitterness in homes of forgiveness and understanding. I took this as the norm until I realised when I was older that such big traumas and loss can also lead to hatred and division. I have said here before, and I will say again because it bears repeating, that neither my grandfather Johnny nor my father Liam ever promoted such negative thoughts and feelings. They proactively encouraged tolerance, understanding and forgiveness. They never sought to blame or seek those involved in the ambush here at Béal na Bláth. They took the view that a tragic civil war was taking place and that it was an inevitable, heartbreaking consequence of war that people died. Members of the ambush party came to my grandfather and sought his forgiveness, and that forgiveness was given. My father described his Uncle Michael as the man whose name, with the passage of time, will come to be respected as an honoured Irish statesman of and for all the people. There is a great deal of sadness and despair in our country today. For us parents of Ireland, one of the most painful losses is the departure of our children to far-flung places around the world. We feel we have lost the joy of the company of our children and their engagement in our lives. Our rural towns seem to be closing down around us, and many people are suffering the crushing weight of debt. In my daily working life, I am meeting huge levels of worry, distress and despair. And for very many people, it feels like there is no light at the end of the tunnel. Businesses that have been in families for generations are closing down, are being closed down, or are barely hanging on by their fingertips. And it feels like rural Ireland is losing hope. In his short life, Michael Collins was surrounded with difficulties and loss. He confronted those difficulties in an energised, proactive and constructive way. He did not shy away from the hard task. Distasteful or not, he did the job he had to do. He did not know at any given minute what was ahead of him, and this did not diminish his commitment and his positive engagement with life. I think that this is the inspiration for us, the people of Ireland. This is what we need to take away from Béal na Bláth today. A determination to support each other in our difficulties, and courage and perseverance to find and engage in constructive solutions. Most of all, we need to find our hope and renew our positive outlook, energise our belief in ourselves and our families and in the lives we are living now and for our future. Bill Herlihy has described himself as a very lucky man. Lucky to be in the right place at the right time, he says. It seems to me, in looking at Bill's life, that he is a man who held his hope, listened to his intuition, and walked through the doors of opportunity when they opened. Talent, good heart, good humour, and a strong positive attitude in life no doubt contributed to the good luck for which Bill is so grateful. We need to take this home with us today. Michael Collins's belief that together we can survive this and that we can decide to bring real joy back into our lives. In conclusion,
Colin Charlie Metcalf to Ray Elite or Reed on behalf of the committee. Any people who have private wreaths to lay or want to lay bunches of flowers can do so after the summary. So. And we'll have a minute's silence just after the wreath is laid. Thank you all very much for your respectful attention. We now have the last post by the trumpeter here, Sergeant Kelleher, and once again I'd like to welcome Sergeant Kelleher here. It's always a great pleasure for us to see a representative of the Army present here. Collins was the founding father of the Army, and we're delighted to see a presence here, and I now call on Sergeant Kelleher to sound the last post. Now we'll raise the flag to full mast and we have the reveille. Now, before we have our national anthem, I think it behoves me to thank you on behalf of the organising committee for being here today. I would like to publicly express our gratitude to our guest speaker, Bill Herlihy, for his excellent oration here today, to the County Mayor, Councillor Noel O'Connor, Deputy Lord Mayor of Cork, Councillor John Buttimer, the Mayor of Macroom, Councillor Ted Lucy, Helen Collins, Father O'Connell, and for all those people for their contribution to make this a meaningful ceremony here today. Also, it's an opportunity for the committee, and I speak on behalf of the committee, to acknowledge and thank the Coyley and Long families for their continuous cooperation and support again this year. They're our neighbours around here, the landowners. Give them a round of applause. Cork County Council, the Gardaí, the Army represented by Sergeant Roy Kelleher, the Red Cross represented by John Collins from Dunmanway, the Mill Street Band of course, the media, Now, the media in this case includes the press, radio, TV, and the media are a very important part of this event because they give continuous coverage, they give us continuous assistance and support, not alone this year, but over many years past. So I'd like to acknowledge that and to thank them. And finally, I would like to thank you, all of you here present. Some of you I know came from a long distance, a very long distance. There's people down here from the north of the country, from the west, from the east. And indeed, it's a great tribute. I know some of you come here every year without fail. So I acknowledge and thank you for that. And I suppose without your support, this ceremony wouldn't be possible. So continue to come and pay our tribute every year to a revered Irishman. I wish you all a safe home. And before that, there's many people in the crowd. I suppose I can't refer to everybody, but I just saw our Minister for Agriculture here, our Deputy Simon Coveney, Minister for Agriculture, Food and Mediterranean, and he was a former speaker here. So delighted that you're here, and welcome, Simon. I wish you all a safe home, and may God bless you all. And we'll leave there so. That's Bill's book. Thank you all. You now we'll have the national anthem.